Hello everyone, I'm Rob the Robot from the Adobe Education team, and I would like to welcome you to the Inject Creativity Live Show. This is an online show for educators interested in digital creativity. This show is live on the Adobe for Education YouTube channel, as well as other social media, and past recordings can be viewed via bit.ly/adobe-inject. Any teacher, whether an Adobe user or not, in any K-12 or higher education sector and any subject area is welcome. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Kitchen and Erin Raithke.
Well, thank you very much, Rob, and hello, Erin. Welcome, everyone, to the Inject Creativity Live Show.
Hi, Tim, and a special welcome to everyone who's joined us live on Wednesday, the 3rd of March, 2021, via the Adobe for Education YouTube channel, as well as the Australasian Adobe and Education Facebook group. We encourage you to say hi in the chat and let us know where you're listening from.
During each of these episodes, we would like to respect and honour Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders past, present and future, as well as all Indigenous people from the lands we reach out to during this event.
We acknowledge their stories, traditions and living cultures. We acknowledge them as the first peoples in our lands, the first scientists and the first creatives, and we will commit to building a brighter future together.
During this episode, Adobe Education Leader Emeritus Chris Betcher from Sydney will be with us.
And our Education Thought Leader for this episode is Paul McLean from New Zealand.
Before we hear from our guests, let's see who has joined us live for this show so far and has said hi in the chat. I'm just jumping in now and we're saying, well, Gary from Wagga Wagga is saying hi. Well, he's giving us a smiley face anyway. He's on with YouTube. And our friend John from Toowoomba. John from Toowoomba, Queensland, he's glad to be with you all again. That's terrific. And Juliet Bentley, it's always a pleasure to see you. Let's see. So good to be able to be here. It's so good to have you with us, Juliet, who will be one of our guests in the next episode too, by the way. And we've got Janine Pritchard from Victoria, Clunes, beautiful part of Victoria. And Ben, who's from the border of New South Wales and Victoria, is saying g'day. And Michael is saying hi from Dubbo. And we've got a Facebook user, hi Tim, watching from the car park. Okay. There we go. Well, we don't know exactly are, but that's okay. And Juliet found that quite amusing. There we go. Terrific. Well, it's great to have those people with us and keep firing up questions and comments and thoughts.
Yeah, note that we're getting the chat from those of you on Facebook, LinkedIn and YouTube, but not always from Twitter. So if you're joining us from Twitter and you'd like your comments, questions and your answer to the coming quiz question posted and published by us during the chat show, you may want to jump out of Twitter and into the Adobe for Education YouTube channel at youtube.com/Adobe for Education.
And let's welcome our friend and the Inject Creativity Live moderator, Jerry Wong. Hi, Jerry. You're going to bring yourself up to the screen. There we go. Lovely.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this new series of the Inject Creativity Live shows. I will be looking out for your comments and questions in the chat, and I'll be posting the most relevant ones. To encourage you to use the live chat, I have an Adobe quiz question for you. In which Californian city is the Adobe headquarters located?
All right, that's a good question, Jerry. And let's see who's going to be the first one to respond. Looking at the comments here, we've got...
Well, yeah, I can see our Jiu-Jitsu user is JB.
Aha. And Haley's coming in from Western Australia. So we've got people from all over the place. No one from the Philippines yet, it seems, has added 2 comments. And the question, of course, Jerry, do you want to read the question again? Because we haven't got an answer yet.
Yeah, in which Californian city is the Adobe headquarters located?
People are madly looking up Google now to get the answer.
Yep.
Hey, we've got a winner. We have a winner. Well done. Oh, I didn't get my sound effects again organised in time. So well done.
Nice.
John, you're a constant winner. Let's see who else. And Michael has also said San Jose. Gary, it's not San Francisco.
I'm with you, Gary. I just said San Francisco as well, so you're not alone there. We got the sand part right.
Absolutely. Ben thinks it's San Jose as well. And Juliet is saying, are you going to pay our ticket when we're able to, Jerry? Oh, that'd be nice. We'll meet up in San Jose. Do you know the way to San Jose, Jerry?
No.
There we go. Well done, John. And
I haven't
John,
been there yet.
I do have a little prize for you for getting that right. It's just it'll be a little surprise prize for you, actually, John. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Yeah, a little bit of merchandise. So email me, John. You know my email address, kitchen@adobe.com, and just to confirm your best postal details. Let's welcome our two guests for this episode.
Okay, so drum roll. There we go. Chris, welcome back to the show. So for those who haven't met you before, tell us a little bit about what you do for a job.
Hi. Well, I was a teacher for most of my life, and then I moved into working with a lot of teachers on professional learning and professional development. Somehow I've ended up on the education team at Google. So I'm based here in Sydney. My title is Program Manager for G Suite Adoption, Google Workspace Adoption. We just changed its name. I work with schools throughout Australia, New Zealand, and in parts of Asia Pacific.
I've got a special announcement that Google have announced that relates Google Classrooms with Adobe. We'll come up with that in just a minute. But let's meet Paul. Paul, tell us about your education background and the work you're currently doing with Rare Innovation in New Zealand.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. 10 years in the education space now, following 20 long years in industry. Got involved to drive that creative paradigm all those long years ago, and I've been doing it passionately since. I'm now working with Ruapeo College in the middle of New Zealand to reconnect education into the community.
Chris, question for you and for Paul. Chris, if you go first, tell us what being an Adobe education leader actually means to you.
I guess community, Tim. I was lucky enough to be part of the first cohort in Australia, and I think it was 2009 from memory. So it was a while ago. And in that time, just having met some of the extraordinary educators that are part of the program. And even though, I'm no longer in a school, I really appreciate the fact that you guys have figured out a way to keep people like me involved and part of the community, because that's where it's at.
And what about you, Paul?
Pretty similar, actually. I think it is a sense of community, but buying into or having a connection to real change with educators right around the world. And for my own personal pursuits, it's the whole series that Adobe put on it's motivation in a box, whether it's actually getting into the education exchange or whether it's getting online like we're doing now, or connecting with educators offline. It's just pure motivation constantly, and it keeps you driving forward to better yourself and getting involved with people who are doing a better job anyway. It's fantastic.
Good on you, Paul. Now, Chris, I'm just going to bring your slides up because there was a special announcement made. Can you explain what this whole third-party integrations with Google Classrooms means, and what's the connection with Adobe?
Sure, yeah, no worries. And look, we at Google, we made a whole bunch of announcements last week. We've just released a whole bunch of updates and product releases, and plus we changed the name, as I mentioned, to Workspace. But one of the things that excited me, because I still have my Adobe hat on, when I saw the announcements, is for a lot of teachers that use Google Classroom, and there's lots and lots of them. I think 170 million teachers around the world using Classroom now. We're about to launch a new feature where you can have third-party tools built directly into Classroom. So teachers will be able to launch projects using these tools, mark them, grade them inside Classroom. The students can submit them back and forward, all the stuff you usually do in Classroom. But I was excited to see that one of the tools we'll be launching with is Adobe Spark. So I think there's a couple of others as well, but the Spark one really jumped out at me, obviously.
Very, very cool. So what does that actually mean? Does it mean that kids can actually create in Spark and publish in Spark without having to log into Spark separately? Once they're in Google Classrooms, they're also in Spark. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a nice integration right now. Adobe and Google work together where a student can log into their Adobe account using their Google credentials. And it's pretty seamless to use Spark if you've got a Google account in schools anyway. But this actually takes it a step further than that. It means a teacher can actually create a task or an assignment request for students using Spark as the tool of choice, push it directly out to the students inside Classroom, and then the students can complete the task inside Classroom without actually leaving to a different browser window or anything else. They literally do it inside Classroom and then submit it back straight in to the teacher for assessment.
That's such good news. Well, I'm looking forward to sharing that to the wider community. Thanks, Chris, for letting us know. I'll just stop sharing. Oh, Jerry's done that. Thank you. Erin.
Yes, and Paul, can you give us a teaser about what you'll be sharing with us later in the show?
Yep, sure. This follows the theme from last year, but it's a quick how-to, which I'm walking through right now, how to set up creative and digital mastery in a school environment.
Cool. Looking forward to it. And Chris, what will you be sharing?
Tim, I'll be sharing some ideas about filmmaking, but not particularly about, I mean, obviously, whenever I do filmmaking, Premiere Pro is my weapon of choice there. And I use Premiere Pro a lot and I love it. But, I think I want to backstep a little bit and talk about some of the principles of filmmaking so that when teachers and students are actually making video, that they're really building some of those cinematic processes into them and thinking about shot and story and how we actually tell better stories using cinematography.
Looking forward to it. And Erin, I noticed we've got a few more people who've added some comments here. Timothy Cosgrove, who's a regular, has joined us again all the way from Toronto, where it's probably about 2:40 in the morning. And Timothy, give us an idea of what the temperature is at the moment in Toronto. I can imagine it'd be very, very cold. And totally contrasting to that is Roland in the Philippines, near Manila, where it'd be pretty warm at the moment, saying hello to everyone. So congratulations, all the people who have joined us live. Please, if you're watching the recording of this, join us live. It's a lot more fun that way. I'm going to say goodbye to our guests for the moment. We'll bring them back in a few minutes. Last week, Erin, we launched the February 2021 Australasian Adobe in Education update.
And here is the video summary of that update.
Welcome to the Australasian Adobe in Education update for February 2021. Our Victorian friends have just been through a short circuit breaker lockdown period of remote teaching and learning. Until the COVID vaccine program is fully implemented, teachers and students will need to be prepared to share content online during potential future lockdowns. And of course, having a blended approach to teaching and learning that combines face-to-face and online methodologies makes a lot of sense, and Adobe is here to help. This update features a wide range of free resources to share with your colleagues, such as Adobe's free distance learning resources and project ideas site on the Adobe Education Exchange, the new set of Get to Know Your Adobe Apps webinar series from February through to May, the Be a Creative Educator courses to help teachers get through the Adobe Creative Educator badging program, a link to the recent and very popular EduTech and Adobe webinar titled Creativity for All, Together for Student Success, links to this year's Inject Creativity Live series, information on the Adobe Creative Educator live stream show, the 2021 Kickstarter resources for a range of curriculum areas, the coming ACCE conference next month, and more. Note that over 15,000 teachers have registered for Level 1 of the ACE Adobe Creative Educator program. You can earn your ACE badge by doing the Creativity for All course on the Adobe Education Exchange. It is a great course that focuses on creativity in education. You don't have to be an Adobe expert to earn your badge. Register for the March 11 or April 13 Be a Creative Educator course if you would like direct help with this badging process. Have a great month and keep being creative. One of the things that was also in that update is a new holiday video challenge, and we didn't promote it in that video clip, but it's worth mentioning now. It's a a Premiere Pro workshop / competition for Victorian Department of Education and Training teachers and New South Wales Department of Education, Training teachers and students. And it's called the Adobe Holiday Video Challenge.
So this is a free 2.5-day online workshop by Adobe during the April 2021 school holidays for secondary students, that is grade 9 and higher, and also for teachers who are keen to develop their video editing skills with Adobe Premiere Pro.
We'll run this event on Monday the 12th of April, Wednesday the 14th of April, and the showcase for the competition will be on Friday the 16th of April.
Adobe's Dr. Tim Kitchen is the presenter, and no prior knowledge of Premiere Pro is required.
We'll be covering a range of video production and editing techniques throughout the 2-day workshop.
The competition side of the event involves the students sharing a 1-minute video that they've made during the week. So first prize is an iPad Air worth $600 and an Apple Pencil worth $130 and 12 months of Adobe stock worth $480.
Second prize will be a pocket gimbal and camera worth $500 plus 12 months of Adobe stock worth $480.
And third prize will be a smartphone gimbal worth $230 and 3 months of Adobe stock worth $120. More information can be found at bit.ly/Adobe-video-workshop-21.
Get involved. Hey, did you notice that Erin has produced another episode of her new show, Create, Share, Learn? This new episode features a demo on Premiere Rush. Erin, what's the best way for us to get access to your show?
Well, I'm trying to figure out the best way of setting up, but right now, if you go to my Twitter feed at Erin Rathke, and that's at the bottom of our little thumbnails, because I know my surname, Rathke, can be a little bit hard to remember all of the vowels and consonants. So just go there and I pop up a little reminder post with a direct link to the YouTube link as soon as it's about to air.
Terrific.
Hi folks, we are about to be inspired by an AEL, an Adobe Education Leader. AELs are passionate about the use of Adobe tools to inspire creative learning and teaching experiences in the delivery of either primary, secondary or post-secondary curricula. The first step to becoming an AEL is to be an ACE, an Adobe Creative Educator, via edx.adobe.com/Adobe-Creative-Educator. You don't have to be an Adobe expert to be an ACE, just a teacher interested in engaging students through creative digital learning experiences. The ACE program is a free international micro-credentialing program. It only takes a few hours to earn your level 1 badge, and the focus is on creativity rather than Adobe. Please share this program with your colleagues and get involved. Who knows, you may one day also become an Adobe Education Leader.
Well, it's a delight to welcome Chris Betcher back to this show. I've known Chris for many years. Even before I worked at Adobe and he worked at Google, Chris was on my radar as an education thought leader and a leader in EdTech. I'd like to share actually one of my favorite events that involved Chris Betcher. Back in the day when we were able to travel, and Chris and I were both fortunate enough to be at the North American Adobe Education Leaders Summit in San Francisco in 2018. Chris helped me put together the official opening video for this event, which was Clara Galan's first Adobe in Education event. And here is a small sample of what we did.
G'day, we are here in beautiful San Francisco, California at the Adobe AEL North American Summit for 2018. And I'm about to go and talk to some of these fantastic people about why they're here and what keeps bringing them back year after year.
I come here because these are some of the best people in the world to get new ideas from.
I come every year because we all connect and because it's the single most important event for my kind of professional planning going forward.
It's a great way to stay connected to Adobe and find out, what's on the horizon.
We get a lot of really good networking done.
The AEL event is the single moment in time where you can find a brain trust of creativity from all over the world.
Yeah. We get a plethora of amazing ideas, and then we also figure out different ways that we can kind of lean on each other to make newer, cooler things with our kids.
Wow, did you hear that? Amazing ideas. And this is Stanford.
You can find your tribe. You can find ideas for creativity that exist in other places, other ways, other methodologies. And best of all, you can just celebrate what's happening in schools all over the world. That's why I come every year.
Come all the way from the UK to drink their wine, eat their food, but mainly to hang out with folks like Deela and all the other amazing ALs, because it's really important for us to connect and cross-fertilise. Is that too rude to say that?
Oh. Well, you're definitely implying. No, I'm just kidding.
Fantastic.
It's just such a great opportunity to be in a different country, as well to learn with like-minded people, but in a completely different environment with different curriculums, different understandings, and just different approaches. And I'm really excited, really keen to learn from so many different types of people.
But it's been really exciting to organize my first Adobe Education Leaders Summit. All of the educators here are incredible, so both coming from primary, secondary, and higher education. Really packed agenda this week, but really looking forward to it.
Some good memories there for you, Chris.
Oh, that takes me back, Tim. That was a fun few days there in San Francisco, wasn't it?
Good. And if we had more time, we'd talk about that restaurant that I thought was a French, no, Italian. Anyway, let's worry.
Long story.
Yeah. Without any further ado, Chris is an Adobe Education Leader Emeritus, which is the highest level of Adobe's education community leadership programs. For his day job, he works for Google as an education program manager, and for this episode of the show, he will be sharing some of the principles of cinematography that can help turn your next video project into an award-winning production. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Erin. Much appreciated. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm going to talk to you about filmmaking, but not so much about how to use Premiere Pro, because honestly, there are lots of great resources to work that stuff out. I want to talk to you about this thing called the cinematic approach, and I'm going to give complete total props on this to my good friend Jim Sill, who runs a company here in Melbourne called Deploy Learning, and Jim is a filmmaker who became a teacher. He's got a lot of experience actually working in Hollywood, and he took a lot of that back to the classroom and did some amazing award-winning stuff with kids. And I've learned most of what I know from Jim. So I just want to put that out there. I think it's important to acknowledge that. Just move to the next slide. Oh, if I can move to the next slide. There you go. The filmmaking process, if you break it down, it's 4 stages, really. There's pre-production, where you go out and you do your writing and your scripting and storyboarding. You choose your actors if you need them and do the rehearsals. That's all the pre-production. Then you've got the production stage, where you're going out there with a camera and actually collecting footage. And, you know, these days, whether you're collecting it on a phone, or I actually use this a lot lately. This is a little GoPro, and it's such great quality. And so easy to use, and the sound quality is amazing for a little camera. So it doesn't matter what you use. You could use a DSLR camera. You could actually have a proper commercial video camera. It doesn't matter. Collect your footage. Then you go into post-production, and post-production is that stage where you're taking all of the footage you've collected and you're figuring out how to put it together. And that's the stage I want to talk to you about today. Okay. And you can use all sorts of tools to do that. As I said before, my tool of choice when it comes to doing real serious video editing work is Premiere Pro. I like Premiere Pro. I don't find it confusing once you figure out how it works. It's pretty easy to use. If you do want something that's probably an easier entry point, then I'd suggest Premiere Rush. And honestly, if you just want to do something pretty simple, Spark Video's got some great options in there as well. And then finally, at the end, when you get to having made your piece of artistic genius, ask yourself some questions. Would you want to watch it? And would you change anything? And what would you do different next time? So you go through that evaluation stage. So the question I'm going to pose then is really, how do you tell a story so that people actually want to watch it? And I've been a teacher long enough to know that, like a typical classroom production, if I just give cameras to kids and say, go and make a movie, or if I give cameras to teachers and say, go and make a movie, here's typically what I'll get back. I'll get videos of kids doing things. It'll be they'll take about 5 second grabs, 5 to 7 second grabs, and they'll just put one after the other in no particular order. And then they'll put a piece of music on the background, and it's usually copyrighted music anyway. That's kind of what you get if you don't really specifically teach some of these principles to kids about filmmaking. There's no narrative there. And so that's what I want to talk to you about. It's this difference between digital storytelling, which is simply taking bits of digital media and sort of bunging them together into a way that sort of presents the media, versus storytelling or cinematic storytelling. So if you think about this idea called the cinematic narrative, and I'm totally channeling Jim Sill on this, is if you think about like a book and a film. If you take a book, you think a book is made up of sentences, and you put enough sentences together, you get a paragraph, and you put paragraphs together, you get a chapter, and you put all the chapters together, you get a novel. Okay, that's kind of the structure of a book. And if you think about taking that sort of literary idea and translating it into film, you've really got what was a sentence becomes a shot. Okay, it's when you take your camera out and you go and capture like something happening. That's like a sentence, a shot. And then you think about, if I take a bunch of shots and put them together and they're somehow related, it's called a scene. So I might take a few shots in the same location, that becomes a scene. The equivalent of a paragraph, if you like, in literary terms. Then you take those scenes and you put them together, and you might hop from one location to another to tell the story. And that's kind of like a sequence. They could be related. They don't have to be related, but they belong together somehow. It's like a sequence relates to the idea of a chapter. And then, of course, if you take all of that and put it together, you end up with a movie, which is the equivalent of the novel. And I think thinking about film the same way you might think about books and breaking it down the same kind of way, it really helps to start breaking down how you think about how you might make film. Now, I'm just going to give you a little short history lesson on film, because I said before that if you leave kids to their own devices and you don't train them how to actually make movies, what they'll typically do is they'll get their camera, right? And they'll stand there with their camera and they'll say to their colleague, their mates on the other side of the room, okay, can you can you do that now? And they'll stand on one side of the room, video the kids on the other side of the room, and that's kind of what you get back, right? Now, if you go back to 1895, the Lumiere brothers in France were actually the first people to ever make a moving picture. And I'm just going to play a little bit of it here. This is the Lumiere brothers' first ever film. It's considered to be the first piece of cinema. And what they did, this film is 46 seconds long. They took their camera, put it on a tripod, and put it out the front of a factory and watched people leave the factory. And that's it, right? That's kind of the entire film. I'm not going to play the whole thing for you. I think you get the idea. By the way, I'll give you the link to the slides at the end of this, and there's a little Wikipedia logo in the bottom of each page, which will take you to the Wikipedia article about the film if you'd like to read more. Now, that's a pretty boring film, I would think. Interesting because it was the first film, but pretty boring from a story point of view. A couple of years later, the Lumiere brothers made another film. It was called L'Arrivée. I don't speak French. It means the arrival of the train, right? And if I play this, it's the same idea again. The camera sitting on a tripod, not moving, nothing dynamic happening here, and watching a train pull into the station. And that was the film, 50 seconds long. Now, the reason I sort of say that is because if you think about what most students will do if left unattended and you don't tell them otherwise, they will probably sit a camera on a tripod or hold it in their hands and they'll just film something that's happening. And like that's so 1895, right? We can do a whole lot better. So a few years later in 1903, a fellow called Edwin Porter produced a film called The Great Train Robbery. And this is really the first time we saw a film where they were taking scenes and cutting them together. Now, I'll just play you a little bit of this because it's kind of drags on a bit. It's 12 minutes, right? I'm not going to play the whole 12 minutes. There are 14 scenes in 12 minutes. So do the math. It's like each scene is a little less than a minute long. But each of those scenes is a static shot. So in other words, the stuff that the Lumiere brothers were doing, sitting their camera on a tripod and filming something as a static shot, all they did was do 14 static shots and string them together in a way. But something really important happened. It was the invention of what we call parallel editing or jump cuts. It's when you take a piece of film and another piece of film and you butt them up against each other and you go from one to the other. The first edit, okay? And this film, The Great Train Robbery, was really the first film where we saw editing as we would understand it now. Now, to stop that, I want to go to the next one, because this film here by a director called D.W. Griffiths, this was really the beginning of cinematography. If you want to talk about when did modern cinema start, it was with this film. Okay, it was called A Girl and Her Trust from 1912. It's 17 minutes long. I'm just going to play you a little bit of it. And what I want you to notice in this is the first time we saw a film edited with different shots. There was the long shot, and you can see in that still image there, the girl, we're seeing her from the top of her head to almost her feet. And Griffiths got panned for this, right? The critics said things like, this duffer is showing people swimming around without legs, like completely panned for this style of filmmaking, which we all accept as normal today, right? So I'll just play a little bit of this. You can see that he's going there from a shot of the character moving around in frame to a close-up. The girl's putting a bullet in the keyhole. Now we come back out again to another cut. She thinks what to do. Now we cut to the other side of the doorway, and now we cut back to her, and now we cut to her kneeling in front of the door. We cut to what she's seeing. This might not seem it now, viewed with a 21st century lens, but this was revolutionary. This style of filmmaking, where you cut from different shots taken at different angles and levels of close-up, was absolutely phenomenal at the time. I love the quote there that there's this man Griffiths will ruin the whole business by such silly revolutionary methods. You know, every time you try and change something, people hate it, right? But this was the invention of the close-up, and therefore this was also the invention of movie stars. There was no concept of a movie star before this film because we never actually got to see them close up enough to know who they were. So that's a little bit of a sort of a history of film. Now I just want to jump forward a little bit now to this film directed by Garth Davis, Lion. You might have seen this. This is the story of Saru Brierley, a young Indian boy who got lost on the train system and ended up living in Tasmania and then went back to find his mother. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. It's an amazing film. 6 Oscar nominations, Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, and so on. It won 2 BAFTAs. It won 12 actor awards. In other words, you could consider this a good piece of film. If you're looking for inspiration on how to make film, something like this is worth looking at. Now, I'm going to play you the opening sequence of Lion. Just look at this. We go from this, we're seeing the landscape, and then we cut to this, where we're further inside the landscape. And then we cut further in now, and we're seeing the boy. And then we cut further again for another aspect of the boy. And he turns around. Now we see what the boy is seeing. He calls out to his brother, and then we cut back to the close-up of the boy again, an even closer shot. Okay? Now, let's just analyze that a little bit. So let's go to the next slide. If you think about this in terms of 4 basic shots, you've got that first scene where we see the landscape. That's called the establishing shot. That lets you know where you are, who you are, okay? Then you've got the long shot, which is where we see the character in the environment. Then we've got the median shot, which is where we're starting to zoom in on the character. And then finally, we've got the close-up. Now, let's break those down a little bit. This says establishing shot. What's the purpose of an establishing shot? Well, it's to show a sense of place and time. You want to know where you are, when you are, okay? It's usually what we call a wide shot or an extreme wide shot, okay, depending. And there's all sorts of ways to do an establishing shot, but its purpose is to give the audience a sense of where they are, okay? And the interesting thing about this, it can completely influence your understanding of the following shots. And we'll talk a little bit about a thing called the Kuleshov principle. But if I have a series of scenes of something that's happening inside, and I preface it with a picture of Melbourne, like a scene of Melbourne, then the things you're seeing are obviously in Melbourne. But if I take those same sequence of things that are happening inside a building and I preface it with a scene of, say, New York City, Now that's happening in New York City. This is the magic of film. You can trick people into believing anything you want to believe by very clearly thinking about how you put shot together. And that's the purpose of an establishing shot. Now, here's some examples of establishing shots, and you might recognize some of these films. I believe that's the Psycho house down the bottom there. That's Titanic. I think that's Ben-Hur. I can't think what that top one is. I think it's a Batman film. But that's an establishing shot where you get a sense of where we are when we are. Now, then you go to the long shot. The long shot is where we see the character in the location. And it does a few things. It introduces us to the character. We normally get a full body view or an almost full body view of the subject. And it's showing us how the character is related somehow to the setting. And you can see there, the small boy, Saru, is in this environment that we saw in the wider shot before. And we're starting to see how he's sort of relating to this environment. Some examples of long shots. You can see there, we've got some stuff from Star Wars. I think that's probably Clint Eastwood there. There's James Bond down the bottom. Like, this is where we're starting to now zoom in a bit from that establishing shot and understand how the character, which we're about to meet, relates to this environment, which we've just seen. There's a lovely example here of a combination of the establishing shot, the EST, and the long shot, the LS, right? And this, once you see this, you can't unsee it. You see it in films everywhere. So if I just show you this bit, right? Now, this is the opening for Monsters, Inc. Where are we? What time of day is it? You know, is it a town? Is it a city? Is it a country? Is it like, you know where it is because you've just seen it. Haven't had to use words. And then we cut to the long shot, and now we're introduced to the characters. And that little 1-2 punch combination of establishing shot followed by long shot, that's such a normal and typical way of filmmakers starting to tell their story. Now, for every set of rules, there's a way of breaking those rules, right? So what I'm about to tell you, there's obviously a million variations, and you can break all these rules, but you need to understand the rules before you break them. Then you've got the medium shot, and the medium shot comes in tighter again. Remember I said the long shot, or the long shot was like from head to feet. Now we're coming into sort of chest to head. This is the medium shot. And the medium shot is where we start to develop empathy with the subject, okay? It's less about where the subject is now, and it's more about who they are. And it's the best shot for things like dialogue and conversation. If you were shooting a conversation between two people, you'd probably be using a medium shot to do that. And like I said, it's from the waist to the top of the head. Some examples of medium shots there from various movies that you may recognize. Got John Wayne and Jesse Eisenberg and a few other people there. But that's an example of a medium shot. And then finally, you've got the close-up shot, or you sometimes see it called the extreme close-up shot, where you really get very close. This is where you get intimacy with the subject. You know, when you're in a classroom, well, you might remember back to being a student, and you could be sitting in the back of the room and you could kind of be goofing off and not really concentrating and sort of doodling in your book. But when the teacher comes from the back of the front of the room and walks towards the back of the room and gets near your desk, what do? You kind of start paying attention. You sort of straighten up a little bit and give your full attention now, because you're thinking, like, this is getting close now. That's the same effect you get from the close-up. When we get a close-up effect, it draws the audience in and they start to really pay attention to it, because it's showing that detail and demanding the audience's attention. When you start to see some of these examples of close-up shots, you see what I mean about demanding attention. You cannot sit in front of this piece of cinema and ignore it, right? It's right in your face. So let's talk about then, so that's the principles of collecting these different shots and what they do. Now, when you go out and collect, and often I know you'll be using a mobile phone to do it, just remind your kids, your TV goes this way, not this way. So hold your phone that way. I know there might be a whole new genre emerging now where people sort of film in a vertical format. And if you look on YouTube and Instagram and stuff, you see even those platforms are starting to adapt to it now because so many people do it. But really, like, if you want to make legit films, shoot in landscape mode. Now, when you're shooting, remember to do what we call pre-roll and post-roll. So you get your video clip you want, so you know what you want to shoot. Make sure you start recording before the action point that you think you want to capture. And then when you get to the end and the action stops and you yell cut or whatever it is, like, let it roll for a few seconds, post that as well. You want to have those end pieces in order to give you some latitude to play with. So when you go into the editing studio, when you're in Premiere Pro, you've got some wiggle room and you can actually, just cut it exactly where you want. Now, there's a principle in film called edit on action. And this is from the film Vertigo by Hitchcock. And it's Jimmy Stewart here is trying to get over his vertigo by stepping up onto a step. And I just want to watch the way this works. So we see the character. He's about to take a step. We see his foot, and then we cut back. And if that that third clip there where we cut from the chair, you notice in the second clip, we see his foot go onto the chair and push upwards. And then when we cut back to the next scene, we're seeing his body rising upwards. In other words, we're matching what happened in one scene or one clip to the next clip, right? Really important fundamental piece of film. Now, again, let's go back to Lion. Here's a lovely little sequence here just past where I showed you before, right? So he runs up beside the train, jumps on, looks back, sees his brother running. The brother runs up, grabs the side of the train. Now, that was also fluid and seamless. You might not have even thought much about it. But if you think about from an editing point of view, where the edit points were made in that piece of film, you're starting to see, I'll just play it again for you because it only takes a couple of seconds, right? We're seeing what the character's doing. Then we see what the character's seeing. Then we see what the next character is doing. And we're cutting on action all the time. And it looks like one. Now, if you've made films, that was shot in multiple pieces. It had to be because the camera, we weren't seeing the camera in the first shot. And yet it was taken from where the first shot was done, right? So it's done in pieces. And when it's edited so cleverly that it just looks like it's one fluid piece of film, but it's not. That's part of the magic of filmmaking. When you're doing your transitions, look, you can go into Adobe Premiere Pro and all these different editing tools, and they will give you a million different transitions to pick from. But I'm going to suggest to you, if you're starting out with filmmaking, stick to straight cuts and stick to dissolves. Nod your head, Tim. This is where you agree with me, right?
Nodding.
So, straight cuts is where you just get like one piece of film, boom, joins another piece of film. And you get this uninterrupted action piece like you can see there in The Dark Knight. The other one on the other side from Shawshank Redemption, like when he's laying back in his chair and daydreaming about something, what we're trying to indicate there is there's been a change of time or place. And that's where a dissolve really works, okay? So think about 95% of all your edits are just going to be straight cuts. Sometimes if you want to show a change in time or place, you'll use a dissolve. And unless you're George Lucas and making Star Wars Part 17 or whatever, like you're probably not going to use wipes, right? Just try and keep it simple, at least when you're starting off. Only use transitions for effect, right? And then finally,
you'll wind up. So just your last couple of points would be great.
All right, no worries. I won't play this film because you've got it in the thing, but I want to just mention the thing called the Kuleshov effect, which is to say that when you take a piece of film and put it up against another piece of film, you create an impression in the audience's mind. And this is a great little clip of Hitchcock talking here about the fact that if you have a film clip of someone's face and then you cut to a picture of some children playing and you cut back to the person's face and they smile, they're kind of they're just happy. They're enjoying the moment. They're seeing the children play. But if you take that same clip of the person's face and the same clip of the person smiling and you insert something in the middle, like say a girl in a bikini, suddenly now that person is a dirty old man, right? Because you've just implied a completely different thing by the way you've connected these clips together. I'll give you a link for the slides. There's a whole bunch of links in the end there for choosing music. There's some great places to find free and open source music. And if you want to do something like this with your kids, I'm going to suggest you do that. We call it the 4-Shot Film Project. Just get the kids to use a phone or tablet, shoot in landscape mode, get them to go out and collect some establishing shots, some long shots, some medium shots, and a close-up or two, and then use your editing tool of choice and just put those 4 shots together. You will be amazed at simply taking 4 shots in those 4 different ways and putting them one after the other and cutting them in a clever way, how much better your filmmaking will actually look. And I'll leave it at that, Tim.
Good on you, Chris. Some gold there, some real gold. And it was great to get a few comments through that we shared online as well of appreciation. Thank you very much, sir. very
That's
much.
all right. And Tim, if you just want to bring that slide up again, I've got the link there if people want to just grab it. It's you can see right in the bottom there. It's bit.ly/cinematic stories, capital C, capital S.
I've grabbed it for my
there,
Spark
you get a link to all the slides.
Yeah, I've got it for my Spark page that we'll share at the fireside later as well, if anybody misses it.
Awesome.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Chris. All right. Well, thanks to you, and we'll see you at our fireside chat. And we very much appreciate your time and effort for putting that together.
Amazing.
Okay. So let's just do a couple of things before we introduce Paul. Midway through last year, we launched the Adobe Creative Educator program. We've already mentioned it a few times. We've also mentioned that this is not a program necessarily for Adobe experts. It's for any teacher in any curriculum area who's keen to be inspired to be more creative in the way that they teach. And to become a level 1 ACE, you need to complete the Creativity for All course on the Adobe Education Exchange.
Now, of course, you can do the Creativity for All course online, on demand, and fully independently. But if you prefer to do the course with the input and assistance of Dr. Kitchen and others, then you may want to try the Be a Creative Educator course. It might be perfect for you.
And the next opportunity to do the Be a Creative Educator course is actually next week on Thursday, the 11th of March. If you prefer to wait for the school holidays where you may have a bit more free time, another opportunity will be Tuesday, the 13th of April. But register via bit.ly/adobe-edu-creatives.
There you'll hear from expert educators and researchers, and they'll help you transform your learning experiences to foster and support student creativity in any content area.
We also mentioned earlier the Get to Know Your Adobe Apps webinar series, and we actually started that program last week. Erin, tell us about that program.
Well, we're labeling these events Get to Know Your Adobe Apps, and we have one set of sessions for upper primary and lower secondary teachers, one for senior secondary teachers, and a set of sessions especially for those in post-secondary education like me. So Tim will be presenting, as well as Adobe's amazing solution consultants and Adobe education leaders. Use the QR code on this slide to find out more and register your interest. And please make sure you remember to share these events with your colleagues and wider education networks.
It's going to take over sharing for a sec, because now within the Get to Know Your Adobe App series, if we scroll through the website, and if you say click into the Year 4 to 9 teachers sessions, because we've already started the program, you can now go into it and have a look at the recordings. If I scroll down, you'll see there's a new button now called Recording. When you click on that, it takes you directly to a page that has a link to the recording and then all the different chapters. So you can look at the wonderful work of Brett Kent and Steve Nichols and just see what they've been doing in terms of their demos. And there is the amazing Brett Kent. He's doing a demo there on Fresco, it looks like. And that's how you can find out what's been happening. So it's not that you have to be there live, but it's always better if you can be there live. So register if you can, and we'd love to see you involved in that webinar series. All right, Macquarie University, the Venture Cafe Sydney and Adobe are collaborating on a special project to create the world's longest digital mural to help celebrate Earth Day on April 22.
Now, this project needs the help of you and your students, as well as the ability gained to use the wonderful free Adobe Fresco drawing and painting app. Do we have time for the video, Tim?
Yeah, I think we will play it because we didn't play it last episode. So let's have a look at the video. Attention, all creatives, young and not so young. To help celebrate Earth Day, which this year is on Thursday, the 22nd of April, Adobe, Macquarie University and Venture Cafe Sydney are collaborating to create the longest digital mural in the world. And we need your help. If you have an iPhone or iPad with iOS version 13 or later, download the free version of the Adobe Fresco app via the Apple App Store. It's also available on recent Windows 10 touch devices. Adobe Fresco is a free and simple to use digital drawing and painting tool. You can sketch with a range of digital pencils and pens and paint with watercolors, oil paint, and even charcoal. Just like Photoshop, you can work with multiple layers and insert your own images. There is no limit to what you can create with Adobe Fresco. For the Earth Day mural, work with Adobe Fresco to base a creation on an environmental theme and share your climate literacy with a global audience. Some great tutorials on Adobe Fresco are available at the Adobe Help Center via helpx.adobe.com/fresco/tutorials.html. More information about how and when to submit your mural contribution and other Earth Day celebrations with Venture Cafe and Macquarie University can be found via bit.ly/earthday21.
Hi folks, well it's now time to welcome our education thought leader for their 5-minute gem to inspire us and make us think more deeply about the importance of our role as educators.
And our thought leader for this episode of Inject Creativity Live is Paul McLean.
Paul,
G'day, Tim. Hello.
Hello, Paul. You are the Regional Director of Rare Innovation in New Zealand and obviously a regular and enjoyed presenter of this show. All over to you, Paul. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you've got my screen with the digital mastery setting up slide. Have you got that one there?
For you, there it is.
Well done, mate.
Fantastic. Okay, so this little session, this 5-minute wonder, hopefully, has been supported by a whole range of videos which I've created on this. So if I rattle through it too fast, I apologize, but there are some supporting videos. And basically this covers the Digital Mastery Unboxed series I created on how to create a creative learning paradigm in a traditional education setting. And I thought I'd put this together today because it's basically what I'm working on right now in a particular environment. And we're exploring where we take the program and how we actually resolve some issues regarding different opportunities in the community based around all the impacts of COVID. So this is one of the slides I'm working on right now. This looks at the different levels of I guess, abstraction for a creative program insofar as we want to create an increased national presence for the school and the community, redefine community prospects, generate new forms of education thinking and ideation and creative pursuits from the learners, shift new types of market entrants into new spaces, and then drive in the classroom level a one-to-one immersive pedagogy supported by a continuum of development, and then look at how the learner and school changes in terms of its behavior, and then underpinning the whole thing, real world education with creative knowledge creation pursuits. So what I'm doing right now, setting up digital mastery, stuff to do. This is what I'm working on. Looking at transitioning the school from that transactional churn cookie cutter model into the real world learning talent environment. And in terms of this diagram, hopefully if it pops up quickly enough, it's shifting, I guess, from the fact-based learning, churn model, assessment-centered paradigm, all the way up into that real-world, student-centered, learner-directed, project-orientated, blended learning approach. So it's a big shift, but hopefully it'll provide the engagement and traction we need from a creative paradigm. Digital direction was one of the key things. How do we actually create a continuum to shift the model of delivery in terms of the pedagogy, learner engagement, course effectiveness, the engagement effectiveness of learners, the investment effectiveness, the pathway in the community? How do we shift that into a more real-time, insight-driven approach? So it's a big focus, starting from the school management systems and the instructional grades-based, I guess, stigmatization of learners into that higher order creative interdisciplinary approach. How do we actually bring in an insight model to facilitate that and measure it? 24/7 PD, so rethinking the value and attraction engagement of the profession. We're keen to attract top quality educators into this beautiful paradigm we've got down here. And so 24/7 PLD opportunities, digital certifications, different pedagogy tutorials, and how do we make it really cool to do creative learning in this environment? Technology choice, rethinking tech choice investments. So looking at what I call race to the top technology, which are really centered towards that learner development approach rather than just giving them a device and ticking a box. And then obviously community and the ecosystem. How do we bring in different pathways, internships, entrepreneurial pursuits driven from the classroom, new business and market development approaches, and driving tech innovation developed and used in the classroom. So those 6 areas are, I guess, core to phase 1, if you like, or phase A, in terms of diagnosing where have we come from and then locating a starting point. So having done all that and have explored those ideas, the starting point for me in this environment is rethinking the curriculum, engagement and delivery method. And this is a diagram I went through last year, but bringing together cross-curricular, blended learning, which is deeply immersive and real, if that's as possible as we can get. Real learning in the classroom, real projects provided by industry, real projects with tangible outcomes for the businesses involved, but scooping up the syllabus in a project delivery orientated manner, using the real technologies, agile delivery, skill development, fast paced, but experiential. So the design thinking process is essential for that. And to do that, again, establishing those real world projects and end-to-end journeys for the learners, currently focusing on connecting junior to senior, and then establishing for each particular learner through the experience a highly trusted learner vision, so the student actually feels confident they can work in a very different manner rather than having the teacher at the front putting them to sleep. This is actually a highly experimental journey where that partnership between the teacher and the learner has to be highly trusted. So a fair bit of work defining that at the moment. 4th thing, establishing content platforms, SharePoint Mobile, Spark, on my own platforms through Microsoft Azure, but linking them together, almost like the Google presentation there, linking specialist content platforms within one environment, which makes it easy and accessible to for a student to work on files, get access to tutorials, get access to learning information centric to their learning style in one platform, making it simple to access, but still real. And with COVID in mind, automating platform and workflow management so I can provide responsive feedback. Microsoft Teams, of course, but my fascination with Adobe Connect, I love that platform, so I'm going to fall in love with it again and bring that to life with the whole experience. And the next part, modern learning environment, technological audit, bringing together proper technologies in the classroom from a hardware, software point of view. Thanks to our friends at Adobe. Very pleased to suggest now that Adobe Creative Cloud is up and running with a fantastic deal. Thank you, Adobe. And also Autodesk within the design and creativity learning space. But the final part to the whole thing is to make it real in terms of the credentials that the kids are getting. Yes, we've got the New Zealand qualification system, but embedding those industry certifications into the core curricula to give it real tangibility. Finally, this is a fair bit of work going on this at the moment, real-time measurement of the whole experience from an engagement point of view, how the project objectives are going, learning pace and lapse, making sure that if we are going distant, students are participating, and then the skills development platforms underneath the whole thing. So in a nutshell, we've got 122 students. It's gone quite well. Engagement's been strong, 690 diagnostic projects, driving a significant response to getting involved in new and real-world learning experiences, which has been absolutely fantastic. Because this is a short presentation, I've put the videos on here, and would love any feedback to those videos if that's possible. So I hope
we'll get you to put the links to those videos in the fireside chat for those who are live. And while we're still going on YouTube, you might want to throw in a couple of those links into the comment section too for people to access. But thank you so much. It's been wonderful to see the progress of what you've been doing, and we've kind of been following along the journey with you, and we're looking forward to your next session later on this year. We're finding out more progress. I think I've booked you in for 2 or 3 more sessions.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Tim. It's been fantastic. We had just a quick note, some pleasing news from a prior engagement where we had to deliver a 9-month, 12-month course in 3 months using this creative model. One of the students came top in the world again. So we've had 59 national and international awards through this creative learning paradigm. So chuffed to bits, really.
Terrific.
And Paul, would you mind us sharing your presentation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to chuck that in there now if I can get my cut and paste skills all sorted.
Terrific. All right. Thank you so much, Paul. Very much appreciated. And we'll just finish off this session and we'll catch up with you in the fireside chat. All right. If you are on Facebook and you're not already a member of the Australasian Adobe Education Community Facebook group, please join via facebook.com/groups/AUSAEL.
It's a great way to keep regularly involved with Adobe in education and the wider community.
I'm looking forward to our next Inject Creativity Live event, which will be happening on Wednesday, the 17th of March at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time.
So our AEL presenter for that session will be the delightful Juliet Bentley, who'll be sharing some tips on Adobe Spark.
And our thought leader is education reformer, the amazing Peter Hutton, Director of the Future Schools Alliance.
For those watching the recording of this episode, join us live if you can in the future. It's always much more fun live. And for those watching live, please get ready to move to bluejeans.com/kitchen.adobe for our fireside chat. And we will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Cheers.
Well, folks, thank you so much for watching this episode of Inject Creativity Live. For those who are watching live, join us via bluejeans.com/kitchen.adobe for an informal, non-recorded fireside chat to meet and interact with our presenters, as well as complete the feedback form and apply for a professional development certificate. If you are not watching this live, join us live next time. Use this QR code or link to find out more about dates and topics. On behalf of Dr. Kitchen and Erin Raithke, don't forget to keep being creative.